35 million. That is the number. It is not a projection for the distant future. It is not a worst-case scenario from a science fiction novel. It is the specific, calculated number of white-collar jobs that are scheduled for deletion by the end of 2026, according to the internal risk models of the world's largest investment banks. While you are scrolling through social media, arguing about the latest political scandal, or worrying about interest rates, the architects of the global economy are quietly executing the largest labor restructuring in human history. They are not firing people. They are simply deleting the positions. They are erasing the need for human cognition in the corporate structure. Most people think AI is a tool. They think it is like Microsoft Word or the calculator, something that makes you more productive. They are wrong. AI is not a tool. AI is a replacement class. And the 35 million jobs that are about to vanish are not the low-wage jobs. They are the jobs that sustain the Western middle class. They are the accountants, the coders, the copywriters, the middle managers, and the analysts. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why 2026 is the mathematical point of no return. You will understand why the current stock market rally is not a sign of economic health, but a celebration of your obsolescence. And you will understand that what is happening right now is not a recession. It is a robbery. It is the systematic transfer of income from labor to capital on a scale that makes the Industrial Revolution look like a minor adjustment. This is not a prediction. This is a pattern. A four-stage cycle of economic evolution and collapse that has played out 3 times in the last 2,000 years. We are watching the exact same sequence, the exact same arrogance, and the exact same denial that destroyed the Roman labor market, the Dutch artisan class, and the British industrial worker. And unfortunately, we are not at stage 1. We are deep in stage 3. Let me explain the pattern, because once you see it, the daily news stops looking like chaos and starts looking like a script. Every dominant empire follows 4 steps. Stage 1 is the ascension. The empire grows through human labor. Hard work is rewarded. The middle class expands. Stage 2 is the overextension. The empire becomes rich and lazy. Labor becomes expensive. The elites start looking for cheaper ways to maintain their margins. They import cheap labor, or they outsource. Stage 3 is the silent exodus. This is where we are today. This is the stage where the productive capacity of the human population is quietly decoupled from the economy. The GDP goes up, but wages go down. The stock market hits all-time highs, but the labor participation rate collapses. The elites have found a new engine for wealth that does not require you. Stage 4 is the controlled demolition. The displaced mass of humanity becomes a liability. The social contract breaks. The system resets. You might think technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. That is the lump of labor fallacy, they tell you. They point to the tractor replacing the plow. They point to the car replacing the horse. But they are lying to you by omitting the timeline. When the car replaced the horses didn't get new jobs. They were liquidated. And when the industrial loom replaced the hand weaver in Britain, the weavers didn't become software engineers. They starved for 40 years until a new generation died off. We are entering the horse moment for human cognition. Look at the Roman Empire in the 2nd century. Rome was the master of the world. But Roman labor, the actual citizens, became too expensive. They demanded rights, they demanded wages, so the elites replaced them. They didn't use robots, they used a massive influx of slave labor from the conquered territories. It was the automation of the ancient world. The result? The Roman middle class vanished. The wealth concentrated at the top. The citizens were pacified with bread and circuses, the ancient version of universal basic income, and Netflix. But the economy hollowed out. When the barbarians finally came, there was no one left with a stake in the system to fight for it. Stage 2 verified. Look at the British Empire in the early 1800s. The Luddites weren't anti-technology. They were anti-starvation. The factory owners realized they could replace expensive master craftsmen with steam engines run by children. Profits exploded. The British Empire became the wealthiest power in history. But for 50 years, 2 full generations, the standard of living for the average worker collapsed. They called it Engels' pause. The wealth went up, the wages went down. And now, look at America. Look at the West. We are in the 3rd iteration of this cycle. But this time, we are not replacing muscle. We are replacing minds. The 35 million jobs being targeted are not random. They are the specific layer of the economy that consumes the most capital. The white-collar knowledge worker. Goldman Sachs admitted it in a report they hoped you wouldn't read. They estimated that 300 million jobs globally are exposed to automation. but exposed is a polite banker word for obsolete. The 35 million number I am giving you is the specific projection for the core Western economies, the US, UK, and Europe by the end of 2026. This coincides with the next leap in AI capability, the move from generative AI, chatbots, to agentic AI, autonomous workers. Agentic AI doesn't just write an email for you. It accesses your computer, opens the spreadsheet, analyzes the data, writes the report, emails it to the client, and updates the billing software. It doesn't help the accountant. It is the accountant. And the CEOs know it. Why do you think the tech layoffs have been relentless even while the stock market is booming? In 2023 and 2024, the tech sector cut over 400,000 jobs. The media told you it was post-pandemic overhiring. That was a lie. It was a test run. They were testing to see if the companies could function with 20% fewer humans. And guess what? They functioned better. Profits went up. Efficiency went up. Now they are preparing for the main event. They are preparing to cut the next 30%. This is stage 3, the silent exodus. The humans are leaving the building, and the algorithms are moving in. The smart money is betting on the companies that fire the most people. If you look at the flow of capital right now, it is not going into job creation. It is going into NVIDIA. It is going into data centers. It is going into the infrastructure of replacement. $1 trillion is being spent on AI hardware. Do you think they are spending $1 trillion to help you work faster? No. They are spending $1 trillion to make sure they never have to pay you again. The 35 million jobs are not just statistics. They are the tax base of the Western world. They are the people who buy the houses, buy the cars, and fund the government. When you delete them, you don't just create unemployment. You create a systemic collapse of the consumer economy. This brings us to the inevitable question. If nobody has a job, who buys the products? That is the stage 4 problem. And the elites already have a stage 4 solution. It involves a fundamental change in what money is, what freedom is, and what your role in society will be. But to understand the solution, you first have to accept the scale of the problem. You have to stop listening to the everything is fine narrative and look at the math. The math says that a $20 month AI subscription is cheaper than a $5,000 month employee. As long as that inequality holds true, the jobs will vanish. It is not personal. It is just capitalism doing what it has always done, seeking the lowest cost of production. In the next part, I am going to show you the specific sectors that are blinking red. I am going to break down the red zone jobs, the ones that will be gone in 18 months, and the yellow zone jobs that have maybe 3 years left. We are going to look at the data from the freelance markets, where wages for writing and coding have already crashed 40%. The canary in the coal mine is already dead. The wave is coming. 35 million is just the first set. Let's look at the kill list. The kill list is not random. It is based on a specific metric that the consulting firms like McKinsey and Deloitte use in their confidential restructuring audits. They call it cognitive repetitiveness. If your job involves taking information from one format, like a spreadsheet, processing it through a set of rules like a tax code or a style guide, and outputting it in another format like a report or an email, you are in the red zone. You are not at risk. You are already obsolete. The paperwork just hasn't caught up to the technology yet. Let's break down the red zone. These are the 15 million jobs that will evaporate in the next 18 months. First on the chopping block, the transactional class. This includes customer service reps, telemarketers, and basic tech support. You might think, I've talked to chatbots. They're terrible. You are thinking of 2023 technology. The new agentic AI models don't just read a script. They analyze your voice tone for sentiment. They access your entire purchase history instantly, and they can authorize refunds or changes without human approval. They are polite, they never sleep, and they cost $0.06 per hour. Klarna, the fintech giant, recently revealed that their AI assistant is doing the work of 700 full-time human agents. It is handling 2/3 of all customer service chats. It has reduced repeat inquiries by 25%. And here is the kicker. It is more accurate than the humans were. That is 700 jobs gone at just one company. Multiply that by the Fortune 500. Second in the red zone, the translation and synthesis class. If you are a junior copywriter, a translator, or a content moderator, the game is over. The freelance markets are the canary in the coal mine here. On platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, the demand for writing and translation services has crashed by over 30% in the last year, while the wages for the remaining jobs have plummeted. Why pay a human $50 to write a blog post when Claude or GPT-4o can write a better one in 3 seconds for a fraction of a cent? Third, and this is the one that terrifies the middle-class parents, the junior code monkey. For 20 years, we told our kids, learn to code. It was the golden ticket. It was the safe haven. It was a trap. AI is better at coding than humans. It doesn't make syntax errors. It knows every library in existence. GitHub Copilot is already writing 40-50% of the code in major tech firms. The senior engineers are becoming AI architects, managing the output of the models. But the junior engineers, the ones who used to get paid $100K to fix bugs and write boilerplate, they are not being hired. The entry-level rung of the high-tech ladder has been sawed off. Now, let's move to the yellow zone. These are the jobs that are safe for now, but will be targeted between 2025 and 2026 as the agentic models mature. This is the middle management layer. This includes HR coordinators, compliance officers, junior accountants, and paralegals. Think about what a middle manager actually does. They gather updates from the team, organize them into a report, and present it to the executives. They track KPIs, they schedule meetings. They are essentially human routers of information. Agentic AI eats routers for breakfast. An AI agent can track the productivity of every employee in real time. It can generate the weekly status report automatically. It can schedule the meetings, send the reminders, and even draft the performance reviews based on data, not bias. When the CEOs realize they can run a 1,000-person company with 3 layers of management instead of 7, the middle management purge will begin. This is where the bulk of the $35 million comes from. These are the $80,000 to $120,000 a year jobs that sustain the mortgage market. When they go, they don't come back. This is the white-collar recession that the news is ignoring. They focus on low unemployment because the hospitality and healthcare sectors are still hiring. But you cannot build a first-world economy on waiters and orderlies. When you hollow out the cognitive middle class, you destroy the tax base. And this brings us to the data stacking phase of our investigation. We need to look at the numbers that prove this is not a future threat, but a present reality. Look at the quit rates in the tech and finance sectors. They are plummeting. People are hunkering down. They know the market is cold. Look at the time to hire metrics. For senior roles, it is stable. For junior roles, it is expanding to infinity. Companies are simply ghosting entry-level positions because they are waiting to see if AI can fill them. And look at the insider signals. The CEOs are selling their own stock at record rates. The tech billionaires are building bunkers in Hawaii and buying farmland in New Zealand. Why? Because they know that when you delete 35 million middle-class jobs, the social contract explodes. They are preparing for the fallout of their own invention. This is not a recession. A recession is a cyclical downturn. Jobs come back. This is a structural displacement. It is the horse moment. But you might be thinking, we've been here before. Technology always creates new jobs. This is the most dangerous lie of all. It is the Luddite fallacy. Yes, in the long run, over 100 years, technology might create new roles we can't imagine. But you don't live in the long run. You live in the transition. And the transition is going to be brutal. To understand why this time is different, why AI is not the steam engine, we have to go back to the history books. We have to look at the 3 times in history when a dominant economic power replaced its core labor force and what happened to the society that allowed it. We need to look at the Spanish Empire, the Dutch Republic, and the British Empire, because the pattern of labor replacement always precedes the collapse of the empire. In the next part, I'm going to walk you through the historical proof. We are going to see how Spain replaced its productive class with imported gold, the 16th century version of AI, and how it turned the richest nation on earth into a bankrupt backwater in 2 generations. We are going to verify stage 2 of the pattern, and we are going to see that the 35 million number is just the modern version of the Spanish Hidalgo crisis. The past is a mirror, and right now, it is showing us a very scary reflection. Let's go to the history. Let's look at the Spanish Empire in the mid-16th century. This is the perfect mirror for our current AI moment. Spain discovered the Americas, and specifically, the mountain of silver at Potosi. Suddenly, they had access to nearly infinite wealth that required almost no domestic labor to produce. They didn't have to build factories, they didn't have to farm efficiently, and they didn't have to innovate. They just had to wait for the ships to arrive. This was the generative AI of the 1500s. It was a technology of wealth extraction that bypassed human effort. So, what did the Spanish elites do? Did they use this wealth to build schools or infrastructure? No. They realized that importing goods from France and Italy was cheaper than paying Spanish workers to make them. They realized that buying weapons from Germany was easier than maintaining their own foundries. They outsourced their entire economy. The Spanish middle class, the cloth makers, the farmers, the artisans became too expensive. They couldn't compete with the free money flowing in from the colonies, so they were deleted. Spain became a nation of aristocrats and beggars, with nothing in between. By 1600, Spain was technically the richest country in the world, but it produced nothing. Its unemployment was catastrophic. Its middle class was gone. And when the flow of silver slowed down, just like the AI hype cycle will eventually stabilize, the empire collapsed. They had forgotten how to work. They had forgotten how to build. They had replaced their population with a resource extraction scheme. Stage 2 verified. Now, fast forward to the Dutch Republic in the 1700s. The Dutch were the smartest people in the room. They invented the stock market. They invented central banking. But by the mid-18th century, their labor costs were the highest in Europe. A Dutch shipbuilder demanded a wage 3 times higher than an English shipbuilder. So the Dutch capital owners made a rational, mathematical choice. They stopped building ships. They stopped investing in local industry. Instead, they took their capital and invested it in England. They funded their competitors because the return on investment was higher. They became a rentier economy. The rich got richer by lending money, while the famous Dutch artisan class, the people who built the Golden Age, starved. The economy financialized. They didn't need labor. They needed yield. Does that sound familiar? Look at the S&P 500 today. Companies are not investing in workers. They are investing in stock buybacks and AI hardware. They are chasing yield and efficiency, effectively investing in England by investing in the algorithms that replace you. The Dutch Republic remained wealthy on paper for another 50 years, but its society rotted from the inside. When the crisis came, there was no one left to defend the system. Stage 2 verified. Finally, look at the British Empire during the Industrial Revolution. This is the most direct parallel to the 35 million jobs number. In 1810, a handloom weaver was a middle-class professional. He owned his home, he had a skill, he was the backbone of his community. By 1830, he was destitute. The power loom didn't just do his job faster, it did it for a fraction of the cost using unskilled child labor. The weavers didn't upskill, they didn't transition to new roles. They died of poverty. The British GDP skyrocketed during this period. The empire became the workshop of the world. But for the average worker, wages stagnated for 40 years. This is the Engels pause. It is the period where the capital owners capture 100% of the gains from technology, and the labor force captures 0%. We are entering a new Engels pause. But this time, it won't last 40 years. It will happen in 40 months. And it isn't replacing the hand weaver. It is replacing the mind weaver. It is replacing the person who weaves data into reports, code into software, and words into marketing. 3 empires, 3 centuries. The same pattern. The elites find a way to bypass the expensive, demanding, troublesome local labor force. In Spain, it was silver. In Holland, it was foreign investment. In Britain, it was steam. In 2026, it is intelligence. The pattern is absolute. The temptation to cut costs is irresistible. The 35 million are not victims of a glitch. They are the fuel for the next stage of capital accumulation. But here is where the story gets even darker. In the past examples, the displaced workers could eventually find lower-tier work. The weaver could go dig coal. The Spanish artisan could join the army. What happens when the lower-tier work is also taken? What happens when the AI can not only write the code but also drive the truck and flip the burger? This brings us to Section 4, the modern convergence. We need to look at how this historical pattern is colliding with the specific technologies of 2026. We need to look at the data stacking that proves the decision has already been made. We are going to look at the capital expenditure, reports of the hyperscalers Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta. They are telling you exactly what they are doing, but they are speaking in the language of balance sheets. They are moving hundreds of billions of dollars from Opex, operating expenses, that's your salary, to Capex, capital expenses, that's the AI servers. They are literally shifting the budget from humans to hardware. In the next part, I'm going to read you the numbers. I'm going to show you the insider signal that proves the hiring freeze is actually a permanent hiring ban. And we are going to discuss the concept of zero marginal cost labor. The history proves it can happen. The data proves it is happening. Let's look at the modern convergence. We are now looking at the smoking gun. We are moving from historical patterns to hard, cold financial statements. Because if you want to know what the future looks like, don't listen to the press releases. Look at the capital expenditure reports of the Magnificent Seven. These companies, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, are the architects of the new economy. And right now, they are executing the Great Rotation. The Great Rotation is a financial term for moving money from one asset class to another. Usually, it means moving from bonds to stocks. But in 2026, it means moving capital from Opex to Capex. Opex stands for operating expenses. That is the money spent on keeping the lights on. It is the money spent on rent, on electricity, and most importantly, on salaries. You, the employee, are an operating expense. You are a recurring cost that goes up every year with inflation. You require health insurance. You require vacation days. You require management. Capex stands for capital expenses. This is money spent on assets, property, equipment, and now compute. In the last 18 months, the hyperscalers have increased their capital expenditure spending to over $200 billion annually. They are buying NVIDIA H100 and Blackwell chips as fast as they can be manufactured. Microsoft alone is spending more on AI infrastructure than the GDP of many nations. At the exact same time, they are slashing Opex. They are firing recruiters. They are firing middle managers. They are flattening their org charts. Do you see the trade? It is an accounting equation. They are swapping a variable, expensive, complaining human liability for a fixed, depreciating, highly efficient asset. Once you buy the H100 chip, you own it. It doesn't ask for a raise. It doesn't quiet quit. And its output, the zero marginal cost labor, is effectively free after the initial purchase. Zero marginal cost is the concept that will destroy the white-collar economy. When you hire a human writer, the first article costs $200. The second article costs $200. The cost is linear. If you want 1,000 articles, you have to pay $200,000. When you use an agentic AI, the first article costs a fraction of a cent in electricity. The second article costs a fraction of a cent. The 1,000th article costs a fraction of a cent. The cost of production collapses to near zero. In a capitalist system, you cannot compete with zero marginal cost. It is a law of physics. If your competitor uses AI to write their code, answer their emails, and analyze their data for free, and you are still paying humans $100,000 a year to do it, you go bankrupt. It is that simple. This is why the 35 million number is conservative. It assumes companies will be slow to adapt. But the capital expenditure spending tells us they are not being slow. They are sprinting. And this brings us to the insider signal. The people building this machine know exactly what it does. They know it consumes jobs, and they are positioning themselves accordingly. Look at the insider selling. In 2024 and 2025, the CEOs of the biggest tech companies sold billions of dollars of their own stock. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Jamie Dimon, they are cashing out at the top of the AI bubble. Why? Because they know that the productivity boom will eventually lead to a consumption collapse. They know that if you fire 35 million people, you destroy the customer base for the very products you are selling. It is the Henry Ford problem in reverse. Henry Ford paid his workers enough to buy his cars. The AI economy fires the workers to build the cars, software cheaper, but leaves no one to buy them. The insiders are restructuring their personal portfolios. They are buying land. They are buying gold. They are buying assets that do not rely on a healthy consumer economy. Zuckerberg is building a $100 million compound in Hawaii with a blast-resistant bunker and its own food and energy supply. Is that the action of a man who believes we are entering a utopian age of abundance, or is it the action of a man who knows stage 4 is coming? The smart money is diversifying out of the system they created. They are leaving you holding the bag being a 30-year mortgage on a house you can no longer pay for, and a degree for a job that no longer exists. The modern convergence is the moment where the technology, agentic AI, meets the incentive, zero marginal cost, meets the capital trillions in capital expenditure. That convergence happened this year. We have crossed the Rubicon. The chips are plugged in. The models are training. The Opex purge has begun. The 35 million are walking dead. They are still going to the office. They are still sending emails. But on the balance sheet, they have already been written off. In the next part, I am going to describe stage 4, the collapse. I am not going to sugarcoat it. We are going to talk about what happens to the housing market when 35 million high-income earners default. We are going to talk about the tax revenue collapse that forces the government to print money until the dollar dies. We are going to walk through the Detroitification of the suburbs. The math is absolute. The rotation is complete. Now, the consequences begin. Stage 4 is the collapse. This is the part of the story where the economic problem becomes a social problem. This is where the 35 million lost jobs stop being a line item on a corporate spreadsheet and start being foreclosure signs on your street. The mechanism of the collapse is not a mystery. It is a chain reaction. And it starts with the most vulnerable asset class in the Western world, the white-collar housing market. You see, we have a mental model of the 2008 crash. We think crashes happen because poor people bought houses they couldn't afford with subprime loans. That was 2008. 2026 is the opposite. This crash will happen because rich people bought houses they can no longer afford with jumbo loans. The 35 million jobs being deleted are not minimum wage jobs. They are the prime borrowers. These are the people with the $800,000 mortgages in the suburbs of San Francisco, Austin, Seattle, and London. They are the people who pay $4,000 a month in property taxes. They are the people who sustain the high-end retail sector, the private schools, and the luxury car market. When you fire a junior analyst at Goldman Sachs, or a product manager at Google, or a senior copywriter at a major ad agency, you don't just lose a worker. You create a zombie mortgage. These workers have savings. They have severance packages. So for the first 6 months, they will pay the mortgage. They will burn through their 401ks. They will max out their credit cards. They will maintain the appearance of solvency. This is the Wile E. Coyote phase, running off the cliff but not looking down yet. But by month 9, the money runs out. And unlike 2008, there is no recovery job waiting for them. There is no pivot. You cannot pivot when the entire rung of the economic ladder has been removed by software. Then the inventory hits the market. But who buys it? The entry-level workers can't afford an $800,000 house. The investors aren't buying because rent yields are collapsing. And the other white-collar workers are too terrified of losing their own jobs to take on debt. So you get a liquidity trap. The houses sit, the prices cut, 10%, 20%, 40%. This is the Detroitification of the white-collar suburbs. Just as Detroit crumbled when the factories left, the Zoom towns will crumble when the remote jobs vanish. You will see beautiful, manicured neighborhoods turn into ghost towns, not because the houses are bad, but because the economic engine that paid for them human cognition has been turned off. But the housing crash is just the first domino. The second domino is the tax revenue collapse. The top 20% of earners pay 80% of the income taxes in the United States and the UK. These are the exact people being targeted by AI. When you delete 35 million high-income taxpayers, you don't just lose their income tax. You lose their payroll tax, their capital gains tax, and their consumption tax. The government revenue model is built on taxing human labor. When labor goes to zero, revenue goes to zero. But the government's expenses do not go to zero. In fact, they explode. Because now you have 35 million angry, educated, politically active people demanding unemployment benefits, demanding retraining, demanding a bailout. So what does the government do? It has only one tool left. It prints. The central banks will be forced to monetize the entire federal deficit. They will print money to pay the unemployment checks. They will print money to bail out the banks holding the bad mortgages. They will print money to fund the universal basic income that will inevitably be proposed to keep the peace. And this leads to the final stage of the collapse, the hyperinflationary depression. Prices will skyrocket because the currency is being debased to pay for the surplus humans, but your ability to earn that currency will be gone. You will have a situation where the stock market is at 100,000 because of the money printing, and the AI companies are posting trillion-dollar profits because they have no labor costs. But the average person cannot buy a loaf of bread. This is the bifurcation. The economy splits into two separate realities. The AI economy of capital owners and algorithms, which is hyper-efficient and hyper-wealthy, and the human economy of displaced workers and devalued currency, which is third world. We have seen this before. In Rome, after the slave labor took over, the citizens lived on the grain dole. They were alive, but they were irrelevant. They had no economic power. They were wards of the state. The 35 million are about to become the new Roman mob. So, what do? How do you survive the deletion of your class? You have to change your identity.